So, hey, welcome to the little press conference here we got for the guys from 21Pilots. So, as you got your questions, 21Pilots people, 21 Pilots.
Hello, people.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, people.
So, why don't we get started like we were talking about right on? I'm going to work my way clockwise through the crowd is what I decided here, too. So, let's talk to you. Go ahead and you can stand up or sit down, however you want to do it, but I'll hand you the mic. Just introduce yourself, ask your question. We'll get started with...
Hi, I'm Alyssa.
Hi.
Alyssa.
Wow, you guys are real. I kind of didn't really wow, okay, anyways. What song was the easiest to write and what song was the hardest to write?
I would say probably the easiest one was a song called House of Gold. I wrote it on the ukulele, and I didn't know how to play the uke when I bought it, so I went to a music store, and I was like, oh, that's cute. And I bought a ukulele, and started playing. And if you know the song, it starts with just like one string, and that's it. Yeah, it's just like one string playing over, and so I kind of sang this part that just came so natural. I think it had something to do with writing a song on a new instrument, that all of these possibilities were available. And then after that, I realized I should probably learn some chords. So I put some chords into it after. But that song particularly, I remember it just kind of coming to me very quickly. And the uke is portable, meaning you can like take it, piano, you can't really like walk around with that. But I was in a parking lot, I remember, when I played the uke for the first time and was writing that song. So that one was probably the easiest. The hardest, surprisingly, the song Bandito on this newest record was the one that took the longest to write. The idea had existed way longer than the record and these batch of songs had existed. So it was definitely the oldest song, but also was the last song that I finished on the record too. So combination of that. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so that's that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good answer too.
Yeah, great answer.
On fire.
Okay. Hi, I'm Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
So, what was the first initial idea / inspiration that built up to create the entire storyline of Trench?
The initial thing?
The tiniest little idea that created the entire storyline.
I would say that's really hard to boil it down to one tiny idea. We wrote a whole record on the concept, so it was pretty extensive. I guess if I had to boil it down to one thing, it would be when I realized that a lot of the solutions to figuring out what was going on in my own head was coming to grips with there's an antagonist, someone who's against me that I'm trying to defeat. That combined with your psyche is kind of you can kind of treat it like a map where there's areas you're coming from, there's areas you shouldn't go anymore, and there's areas you should be heading towards. And so when you treat your brain as kind of giving certain things jurisdiction, it helped me. So that kind of broad strokes was the inspiration for the whole idea of it.
Hello, I'm Darla.
Hey, Darla.
And so I know you guys have tattoos, and they're very meaningful and have a sentimental message. There's this new show on MTV. It's called How Far is Tattoo Far? And if you guys were to go on that show, what would you put on each other for tattoos?
I've never heard of that show. What are some examples of
So a great example would be there's two best friends, such as yourselves, And they go on this show and they put on random tattoos on each other. So one person put a face of, I think it was like Robert De Niro, on their chest. And the other person took like a Taco Bell symbol on their arm. They said, well, you love Taco Bell. So it's kind of like,
Jeez.
just something random.
That's tattoo far.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they know what they're getting?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. I like that concept.
I
Probably-
don't.
Yeah, I would have to do something that Tyler thinks is cool.
Yeah, of course. I've always wanted to. I think I've said this before, but I would probably tattoo a baby cow on your calf.
Yeah, that would be a good one. What would I tattoo on you? You would do that on me?
Yeah.
I would tattoo. Jeez, man.
I have another one.
Let's hear it.
saw this stand-up comic said this one time, so this is not mine, but he said that he wanted to get a tattoo of his face on his face, but slightly to the left.
I was gonna say that one actually.
Really? That would be awesome.
Tattoo your own face.
Yeah.
On your
Like the
face.
same face, but just like a little off.
You would look 3D
Yeah.
in photos.
I think you could just go with Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell.
Hi, I'm Mary.
Hi, Mary.
And the question I have is, what is the first thing you do after a show?
That's a good one. Well, there's always a conversation, basically. I think that before Josh and I, wrap up the night, whether it's like, we don't eat dinner until after the show. So our schedules are all kind of pushed way back. So the show for us is like midday. But before we usually do that, we usually find ourselves in the hallway outside of the rooms with, our lighting guy or our production manager, our stage manager, and constantly making notes on what we could have done better and what we could work on and what was missed there and how can we fix that. I think maybe I don't think there's been a single show this tour where there hasn't been something we've talked about afterwards, which I was talking to Josh about it a couple days ago when we were driving to the venue. Like, what's going to happen when we start doing the show that we planned without any mess ups? It's almost like getting it right and chasing after that perfection is why we do it. And if we ever get to the point where no one messed up, should we just go home? Like, it's done. Like, what's the point? We're really driven towards trying to, what could we have done better? And so pretty much every show, we talk about it. Right?
Yeah. That's good. And then we eat.
And then we eat, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm standing behind you in case you're wondering. Here's the microphone for the next question.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Tara.
Hey, Tara.
Hey, so we were just talking about this on the way here. You're obviously a huge part of my daughter's life musically. When you were 12, who was your biggest part of your life musically?
I'm trying to think. I think that I just picked up the trumpet when I was 12. That was the first instrument that I played. So for some reason, yeah, my grandpa took me to like the jazz orchestra in Ohio, and for some reason I was like drawn to that. I don't know if it was anyone super in particular. and then I got into like rock music and like hip hop and stuff like punk a little bit after, and then I was like, I'm over the trumpet kind of. So I played the drums.
It's not very punk.
It's not very. It's more ska.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I mean, I guess it was the Columbus Jazz Orchestra for me at the time.
He would camp out before their shows.
Yeah. Wear all their merch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I actually grew up in a not very musical family, more focused on athletics and stuff, and so I felt very odd in my family to care about music. And I taught myself how to play the piano when I was younger, and I think maybe it started out of boredom, but then very quickly turned into kind of just obsessed with the concept that I could find something, I could create something that didn't exist before. So very quickly started writing songs. And then I had really no idea like what made a song, and so I really just soaked up everything at that point. So I went from not really having a lot of musical influence to then all of a sudden being influenced by everything and anything. I guess you could say the radio, and then pretty much anything else I could get my hands and ears on. And so it's hard for me to narrow it down to one specific band. But if I had to, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
I just saw a poster of the Backstreet Boys on the way down here, and so I'm not saying that it is, but I'm not saying that it isn't. So.
Awesome. Next up.
Hi, I'm Georgia. Josh, what's one quality that Tyler has that you wish you had? And Josh, what's one quality and Tyler, what's one quality that Josh has that you wish you had?
I don't know if we have time for all of it.
A lot of qualities that I wish I had. Yeah, we've talked about this before because I think that it's when you're in a two-person band, the emphasis on that relationship is a little bit it's just a little bit more important. And by that I just mean like with bands with more people in it, you kind of can just like bounce around, like, and most bands will have like this type of person, this type of person, this type of person. So with just us and kind of like us being together a lot, I think that like having different characteristics and personalities has actually worked well for us. In some ways we're like the exact same, and then in other ways we're totally different. And I think that it's really helpful. And there are definitely like ways in which I wish I could. Let me try and think of yeah, there are multiple.
You don't have to make them all physical.
Okay, well then there's not that
You
many.
can think deeper.
I think I've never been good at talking in front of people, and I kind of like I'm not good at articulation sometimes because of that, and like explaining what I'm trying to say. And Tyler's great at getting a whole bunch of people kind of on the same page and making everything make sense and making it simple for people to understand and get people to rally behind something. And I think that's a really cool and important thing.
Oh.
And he's good at basketball.
No, Josh has a very natural way of seeing the good in people right away. Sometimes I can approach things a little more cynical or negative, and I've found that it's almost never better to do that. So when Josh meets someone or comes in contact with someone, I'm almost always looking to him to see how it is that, what's the right way to act in this setting. And so that's something I wish that I had more of, but also have learned a lot from him, just being around him, watching him interact with new people all the time for the first time. It's cool.
Oh.
And his chest.
So
Okay.
my name's Lindley.
Hi.
So I'm sure you've had lots of people tell you that you've made a huge difference in their lives and that you've helped them a lot. So I was wondering, when did you really begin to feel like you were making a difference? Was there one moment, or has it just been like a gradual experience?
Wow.
I think one of the first conversations that Tyler and I ever had got deep pretty quick, and kind of even we talked about music, but kind of like more so went into kind of like philosophical behind that, and like why, what's the point or the purpose. And one thing we both agreed on is that music's just a cool way to share something on a large level, and be able to talk. You can talk about whatever you want, and it's really cool. So we both were kind of just like, yeah, if we could affect or impact one person based off of just kind of like doing this, playing instruments and playing shows, which is something that we love to do anyway, then the whole thing is worth it, And pretty early on, we would, before like when we had the means to do it, we would play at like a club or something and hang out and talk with anybody who stuck around. And we would get into really cool conversations with people, and it wasn't too. I don't think it took very long. People kind of would come back to shows, and we'd see the same faces, and then they would, share with us how the music helped them and affect them. And so I think it was kind of a gradual thing, but it was something that pretty early on we would connect with them on stage and off stage, and realize that it was making an impact. And I think it was just a really cool feeling, kind of realizing that that's something that we had talked about before, and kind of seeing it happen.
Yeah, I would say that it's a combination of very gradual. When we first started playing music, there was really no one there, and then slowly grew. But at the same time, we're reminded every day. I mean, even you asking that question, it's a bit of a reminder, and how lucky it is that we are to be in a position where people view us in that way. Which, like Josh said, it makes it worth it, just hearing that. I think it was really important for us to start on a local level with a organic small fan base, because you can't replace who your first group of fans are. They're always going to be that. And I think a lot of artists today, when they write songs, or when they're thinking about their fans, or they're wanting to address their fans, or write songs for their fans or whatever, they can't help but think of the internet, because that's where they do most of their interacting. So we've been fortunate enough to not have to think of that when writing songs or thinking about who our fans are. We try to put ourselves in situations like this, where we get to stare you right in the eyes and you get to ask us a question. But also because how we started, we had these small groups of fans that, like Josh said, we would interact with after shows. We got to know. And so it's moments like this and moments in the past where we've been able to, at the end of the show, go, hey, we'll be down in the pit, let's talk. That's what we think of now. I guess that's probably one of the downsides to what is we do now, is that we can't find enough moments like this. But it's good for us to come back to it. So.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeremy. I had a question for you, kind of along the lines of your success, this immense success that you've had over the last several years, and fame that's come with that. Do you guys find that it changes your life in such a way that you can't like drop into a Denny's or walk into a Walmart without being recognized? And if so, do you guys ever go out in disguise?
Yeah, good question. I think it does. Sometimes we'll kind of just be like, Denny sounds good. So you kind of just, you just do it. We haven't done a disguise. I feel like it would be worse.
Yeah.
Tell
him. Tell him.
It'd be worse to get noticed, in a disguise.
Yeah.
You just look like an idiot. And then I feel like it's also, it could be a little offensive because it's just like if I saw a dude that I really liked, like he's avoiding me. That's what he's doing. So then I would just feel probably kind of dumb. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of worse to do the disguise unless we did it really, really well, which we've never really thought about that. I guess we'll just maybe put on like those glasses with the nose and mustache.
I've also found that just because we're in a situation where sometimes we rub shoulders with other people who, deal with fame. One of the most unattractive things to us is when someone knows that about themselves, when they expect it, or like you can just kind of smell it on them, and it's just, you don't want to. So we've always approached every situation assuming that that's not going to be an issue. Like, we're going to go to Denny's and it's going to be fine. I don't think that we want to put that in the forefront of our mind. Like, well, because we'll be recognized, let's change the way we do this. And because that can seep into the way you think about yourself, and that's not cool. So I guess we always try to make sure we check ourselves, check each other, to a point where we're genuinely surprised when someone recognizes us. Like, wow, okay, sweet. So we're trying to make sure that that's not lost on us, how cool of a moment that is, and we try not to think of it as like a negative thing either. But at the same time, there's something about like where I live, my own house, where it'd be really great if that didn't become common knowledge, because it's not just awesome, cool fans that are aware of who we are. There's like a whole other layer. It's not a ton of people, but it's kind of weird to think that if someone wanted to get to us or hurt us or threaten us, we've got crazy stories too, who they're not fans, just to clarify. But with that comes, someone rings the doorbell or someone's, delivering a pizza or whatever, you think twice about, hey, when I open this door, is this person going to, know who I am, place me with that location, and then tell someone else, and then the wrong person gets that information, and then all of a sudden I can't sleep at night or something. So yeah, that's the one thing that I think about every once in a while. It's really just a safety thing, which I guess maybe is being a bit dramatic, but it's something I think about every once in a while.
How do you get yourself in the right headspace to write the lyrics you write? Have such a positive spin on dark subjects, but are still relatable to the masses. You're obviously very mindful of the impact you have on your fans, especially young fans, dealing with depression, mental illness, and life in general.
Great question. Well, there's something that comes before being in the right headspace. And you have to make sure that you're prepared to manage whatever inspiration comes your way. So before inspiration strikes, you have to work hard. You have to make sure that when you're doing writing exercises, or when you're forcing yourself to work on a certain production element or get better at an instrument, or there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily fueled by inspiration that you have to work on so that you have the skill when it happens. So a lot of times I always talk about songwriting is kind of like being a muscle that you have to work out and have to get stronger and have to tear down and build back up. And so I'm not walking around all day long inspired. There's times where you have to do what you don't feel like doing. And even though I don't feel like writing songs, it's what I love to do, right? So those things can be disconnected sometimes, and that's okay. So then once you're at that point where you have the skill, you've worked on your craft, when that inspiration happens, you're ready for it. And specifically with lyrics, it'll be an interaction with someone. It'll be a word. It'll be a sound. It'll be a certain thought, something you saw that you can't anticipate it. It'll just happen, and you've got to be ready. I think what I try to do with lyrics is, what's this thing that I felt like I've always had, I've always felt, I've never been able to explain it to anyone. How can I explain it, but in a way I've never heard it explained before? How can I, this thing that I'm working through, how can I put a different word to it, a different angle, a new angle? Seeing a problem that's been around for my whole life from a different angle almost gives me a sense of control over that problem. And with lyrics, you can say things new in a different way. And I think that at that point, someone can take those lyrics and go, you know what, I know what you're talking about, even though I've not heard it said like that. And then it gives them a sense of control over that thing as well. And I think that's kind of what has happened with us, is that the songwriting, I've realized, is trying to look at the same problem that I've had for a long time from a different angle. And if I can continue to circle around it and see it from every possible angle, the more understanding I have of that problem. And I guess in a sense, you guys who make the music your own are kind of seeing it from my angle with me, and we're kind of trying to solve it together. So I hope that answers your question, but kind of like that.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Since just for Holly, I just want to say thanks again for everyone that came out today, made the time. Thanks you guys once again for coming out here as well. And honestly, like from my standpoint, like this was so informative, like on a whole different level, because if you can believe it, I'm starting to run out of things to say about 21Pilots over the last like several years, and it goes like such a deeper level. So even for me, this is fantastic for everything. Cool. So I hope it was for you guys. Can we just make some noise just for the hell of it, because we're all like 20 people in a room hanging out, having a great time.